Bandwidth for Changelog is provided by Fastly. Learn more at fastly.com, and we're hosted on Linode servers. Head to linode.com/changelog.
They call me Chase Adams IO. I love building software, and I'm happy to say that there's no better way than to power said software with Go.
It's Go Time, a weekly podcast where we discuss interesting topics around the Go programming language, the community, and everything in between. If you currently write Go or aspire to, this is the show for you. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today's episode is number 54. On the show today, we have myself, Eric. Brian is also here.
Hello.
And Carlisia.
Hi there.
And our special guest today is an engineer for Walmart. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about distributed teamwork and some of the stuff that they're doing with Go over at Walmart. Please welcome to the show, Chase Adams.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hooray.
So you've been a long time listener and follower of Go Time. So we're really excited to actually get you on and talk about some of the stuff that you're working on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've been listening to the Changelog for a long time, and I always hoped that there would be a good podcast about Go. And once Go Time came out, it was love at first sight.
Still hoping. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I know where you're going, but I don't think that's true. I think there's a really good Go podcast out there.
So why don't you give everybody kind of just a little bit of background, maybe about your history with Go and what you're doing at Walmart?
Sure. So I build software in Go for the Edge platform team at Walmart Labs. It was originally a company called Torbit, and it was acquired in 2012. I've only been with the team since December of last year, but everyone still calls us the Torbit team, regardless of the fact that we're supposed to be the Edge platform team. We do three main things for Walmart, which is we have our own reverse proxy, which does the asset and page optimization. So, all the front end optimization stuff. We have a homegrown CDN, and then we have a RUM system, and all that stuff's written in Go.
Yeah, I can get over the fact I talked to you about this a little bit at GopherCon. I can get over the fact that you actually have your own homegrown CDN.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Most of the people on the team have been working on the CDN for a lot longer than I have, and they've done a pretty good job. And as far as I know, it's pretty competitive, and it works really well.
I'm going to go test it. I'm going to walmart.com right now. Hang on. Actually, no, I'll do it from the command line. Curl time curl HTTPS walmart.com.
He's actually doing it too.
Oh, I instantly get a 302. What's the curl command to follow the redirect?
Minus L is the flag I think you want to use.
Minus which?
Minus uppercase L.
L. That's what I said.
So while he's doing that, what's the size of the
hell.
team? And was this written in a prior language, or was it a new project from the ground up written in Go?
So again, since I'm newer to the team, I don't have as much history about what was written in before the acquisition, but I do know that there was, at a point in time around 2012, there was a point where they were trying to decide whether or not to write the reverse proxy in Node or in Go, and clearly they landed on Go. And as far as what I remembered, my manager telling me it was around 0.8. So it's been written in Go for a very long time. So they built the whole company on Go, as far as I know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty neat thing to come into it for having started at 0.8 and being now, I think we're using 1.8. To be able to see that much of a transition is pretty neat.
So, let's talk about hiring. I know your team is small because we talked about this. And so, but I'm wondering, every once in a while, I like to ask people how the hiring is for Go developers, how you approach it at your company or in your team, if you have difficulties.
Yeah, that's a good question. I am the newest person to the team, and before that, I think the newest person was a year old. Our team is pretty small. There are three full-time developers writing Go, and we have a guy who's doing DevOps, and my manager's about 50-50 split. So our team's pretty small considering the different things that we touch at Walmart. So as far as hiring goes, for me, one of the interesting things was being able to be given a project to work on and work on that project as if it were greenfield, and to think about a lot of the considerations for which features I should add or which features not to add because it might move out my project's timeline for when I did do my interview. But our team, is still pretty small, and headcounts one of those things that's hard to come by at Walmart because there's so much to do. But hopefully, as we grow, we're going to have a lot more positions for people to be able to help out.
Hmm. So, wanted to start asking you about your stack as far as having distributed systems.
Oh, that's a good question.
And also, well, jumping ahead maybe, but also talking about distributed teams because I know you work remote and how that works. But one thing at a time, I guess.
Show us your stack.
Yeah. So I can't talk too much about the stack except to say that we have a lot of executables, running in different places, and they're all Go. For our stats, we're using Prometheus, but other than that, like most everything's sorry, and NSQ as well. So those are kind of the two big things that I've spent time with in our stack. But most everything is Go, and it's spread out across the world, which is pretty neat since we support we support ASDA, Walmart Brazil, Walmart Canada, Sam's Club, Walmart US, Walmart Mexico. I don't know. There's so many different properties that we support.
I recently learned that there is a big developer team in Brazil. They actually have a dev team down there. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how far-reaching Walmart is. I've talked to people on Slack from the UK and from Canada. I haven't talked to anyone from Brazil yet, but I know that team is starting to transition to using the Edge platform tools that we have, and it's pretty amazing how many people there are working on stuff for Walmart, and it's different countries that we support.
Are you using Docker, Kubernetes, anything like that?
Nope. So pretty much everything's either on bare metal or NVMs, and since it's a statically built binary, we don't have to really worry about too much other than that.
Yay, Go.
So no Docker, and since it scales as well as it does, we're not having to spin up a lot of new instances of our edge services.
That's really cool. Do you have any secrets you can share about what kind of traffic you see through those edge services? How many billions of requests per hour or anything exciting like that?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. That's an official number. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I don't know that I can grab any numbers real quick, but I know it's enough that it keeps me here.
Nice.
And keeps me happy, which is really one of the coolest things about being at Walmart is we're working at a pretty big scale with Go, and doing it in a way that our team's able to stay small and lean and still support Walmart without having stuff go down, which is pretty great.
That is super cool. So is the team mostly distributed?
Our team is fully distributed.
Fully distributed. Now that's a big difference. So what are the dynamics like on a fully distributed team with Go? How does that change things for you?
It's really interesting. I've been fully distributed myself for my 2-year anniversary at Walmart was middle of July this year. So I've been working on distributed teams not for a very long time, considering there are some people who've been working on them for over a decade. But One of the interesting things I think is, you have a couple of offices and then you have people who are spread out, and then just making sure that communication is clear and concise and that everyone is on the same page about what we're wanting to do and how to move forward. And I think for our team, we do a pretty good job of being clear about what our roadmap should look like for the quarter. And if you hit bumps, I think one of the hardest things for any distributed team is if you're spanning across time zones, and even different people kind of pick different hours to work. If you have a question or something you bump into that is kind of a blocker, finding the time to not necessarily disturb that person, but still be able to get some help
Mhm.
in a quick fashion.
What tools do you use for distributed communication? Are you uh, deeply in Slack or email or some other thing?
Yeah, so Slack is probably one of the heavier tools that we use for communication. Since we're writing code, GitHub is a it's a pretty significant place where we spend communicating. And I think GitHub, or the GitHub Enterprise that we're using now, has a lot of the newer features for reviews and doing approvals. And just being able to give feedback, written feedback, I think is probably one of the hardest things that I've had to kind of get my head around, to do it in such a way that always comes across as being gracious. Because even sometimes even if you say something and your intent is meant to be more exploratory and not necessarily trying to ask somebody like, why are you doing it this way? You have to be really careful with written communication, especially if you only see each other, once a quarter or so, to make sure that you're communicating in a way that people, you can be positive about the way forward with, whatever it is you're talking about.
So have you found ways to do it better than you normally would if you weren't making an effort?
Yes, for me, I usually ask other people before I make I'll make a comment on something, especially if I think that it might potentially come across in a bad way. And I think just talking to someone who uh, has context around what you're talking about, but isn't the person that you're addressing immediately, they're able to look at it from a different way than you are, as the person who has written the code a lot more easily, and give you feedback and say like, well, you could probably tighten this up or even say this thing a little different. Before joining this team, I worked pretty heavily on CI/CD, and I had my manager. A lot of times, I would talk to him about it, and we had a really good relationship to where I felt like I could be open with him about if I was saying something that might not come across right, or bounce those kind of things back and forth. And I think that's always been really helpful on both of the teams that I've been on at Walmart.
So let's talk a little bit about Go at Walmart. Is it pretty much isolated to your current team, or do you know of other teams within Walmart and Walmart Labs that are at least experimenting with Go or have it in production already?
Right now, my team is the only team that I'm aware of that has Go in production. We all love Go, so we're encouraging other people to use it for things that might fit their use case. And anytime we're in an office, we try and do some kind of introduction to Go, just so people can kind of get a taste for it. And we've done things like spin up Slack channel to encourage people to ask questions, or we'll post new things that we're finding, blog posts, or if there's a new project that might help. And I think that's been pretty neat that there are other teams who are interested in writing Go, and I know there are people who are using it for some tooling that they're using for development. I know for me, like again, before I joined this team, working on CI/CD, I owned a Jenkins instance that had 60 agents, 60 different nodes, and we had to share those nodes for a pretty tremendous amount of the customer experience team, which is the team that uses Node.js pretty heavily to run integration tests. And we wanted to be able to use those nodes when at nighttime when they weren't being used as much. And I built a tool with one of my coworkers that would transition those agents between two different Jenkins instances, and then Jenkins can be kind of unstable when you're running 60 different slave agents. So we had a staging Jenkins so that if it ever went down, it wouldn't mess up anyone with prod. But we built a tool in Go that would basically switch those agents in and out based on capacity. Just because neither of us wrote Java, neither of us cared to write Java, and it was a really easy thing to do. And just building those kind of tools at Walmart and really any company, I think, is a great way to show that it's a great language for solving problems.
And your first taste is free.
That's right. Always free.
That's really cool. I think internal evangelism is easier than external evangelism. When you can show the awesome ROI on a project and other people want to look as cool as you, it's easier to sell something like that.
I think that's true. And I think the other big piece of it for me coming into Go was just being able to see someone use the Go tools that are first class citizens to Go that you don't get with other languages. Just to see how easy it is to write Go and to make sure that your Go is gonna work. Having written a lot of Node.js previously, setting up testing for JavaScript's a nightmare. And when you can show those kind of things to people, just how easy it is to set up projects and how Go the language made the developer an important part of the story. To me, that's a really convincing thing to be able to show to developers. And if developers can be productive and be happy, everyone else is going to be happy too.
We should put a sign over the stove in the kitchen. If developers happy, everybody's happy.
That's right.
So you've mentioned CI and CD several times. Is this a passion of yours, or is that something that you enjoy doing consistently?
Yeah, I love CI/CD. I think so kind of my story at Walmart. I joined to work on React components because when you think about Walmart and having apps, these separate apps that need to consume the similar data and be able to not have so much code that's just copy pasta. That was a really big selling point. And if you look at Walmart's open source stuff for the React world, they're working on things like Electrode, which is a kind of what spun out of what I started to work on. But when I joined this team, we didn't have any tests. There was a huge drift across all of the developer tools that we were using. So, Webpack was at different versions. ESLint, if it was even there, was at different versions. So when I came in, even though I was going to work on React components, I wanted to tighten up that story of making sure that our code, especially if tons of people are going to be using and contributing to it, making sure that we keep it clean and making sure that we have ways to be able to see if that code is working, and then how much the test coverage is changing. So it kind of started out that way, where I just wanted to make everything a little bit nicer, and I ended up owning a Jenkins instance around October of 2015. And in December, we decided, or they spun up a new org and asked if I was interested in CI/CD and starting up, getting these Electrode components to where everything was just flowing really nicely, and then getting the apps out the door. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that to me is like, if you can make it so that your code is mostly something that you feel like you can have some kind of assurance about, and be able to get it from the developer to production in a way that's not too convoluted. Those kind of things for me, yeah, they just make me so excited. And I think it really comes out of that thing I was talking about earlier, which is that if you can make developers happy, they'll deal with other things a lot, a lot better. You're gonna have politics wherever you work. You're gonna have some crappy things wherever you work, and if you have really good things, and if you're not having to deal with bureaucracy, or even if you don't even know if your app's going to work when you push it out production, like those are bad things. So making it so that your code is stable and making it so that there's good tooling around that, so that people can run tests locally and then run it in CI and then deploy to prod. Reducing the friction on that to me is just, I think it's one of the most important things that any organization should be thinking about.
Yeah, for me, CI is all about sleep.
I wanted to clarify that CI is continuous integration and CD is continuous development,
Continuous delivery.
continuous delivery.
Yeah, the D is interchangeable for some people. It's delivery or deployment. I think delivery is the best word to use. There's also some like contention about with what delivery is and what deployment is. But yeah, for the most part, it's that idea of CI is just making sure that your code is in a good state to when you merge it into master. You're not going to have to worry about if someone pulls down master to run it that it's going to fail. Or master, mainline, whatever you call your branch that's stable. And then the CD is just, being able to deploy it from environment to environment in such a way that if, all the integration tests pass or all the tests, all the different, what we call gates work, then, your code is going to be able to go to production without a lot of extra finagling of environments.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything about Go? I mean, since you're into this, I'm sure you've done it in environments other than with Go. Is there anything about Go that makes CI especially easier or more difficult, or any aspect of the CI/CD process?
For CI, I think just Go existing in the first place, because Docker, came out of Go, and Docker to me has kind of revolutionized CI. Um, just that alone is probably one of the best things that come out of Go with CI, because you can imagine, if you have a place like Walmart where everyone has their own little snowflake that's going to run in CI. You have to have an environment that matches what's expected, and that either means that you have to plan for all contingencies on every node that you're going to potentially run that job on, and with Jenkins, who knows what that could be. Or you're using something like Docker where everything's kind of been laid out and defined for what that application should have, and then you just run Docker on with that container, and if you're using something like Drone or Travis, it makes it really trivial.
So, how does your CD pipeline work at Walmart? Do you have continuous delivery for a lot of components?
So for the electrode lane, which was the React stuff, that is the case. For us, my team, we're still kind of working it out because we do have some constraints that I think those, just spinning up an app and sending it out to the world don't necessarily have. But for us, most of what we're doing is we're just leveraging, our configuration management tool to get it from point A to point B. I don't know if that answers that question.
I don't either. I think you dodged the question.
I think probably. So we're still working on our CD story for my team. I spent a whole year working on CI/CD for the React components and the React applications. So spending a whole year and being fully, dedicated to that project, we definitely got CI/CD going for that group, and that's a pretty large team of, I don't know, somewhere close to like 500 developers, I think, that's working on the React components as well as building applications for Walmart.com. But for us, we're still trying to figure out that story, and it is hard because we are trying to build our product and then also trying to figure out our CI/CD story at the same time with a small group of people.
Changing the wheels on the bus while it's moving fast.
Yeah, I like to use the. I don't know if you remember that commercial, but it was like, we like to build airplanes in the air. It's that same thing.
I haven't seen that one. No, but I've had that job before, so I empathize.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just thought of this. But do you guys remember there was the commercial with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he was doing the split across the two semis, and then there was like the parody that came out, and it was Chuck Norris doing the split across two planes.
I haven't seen that, but it sounds
I
familiar.
have no idea why that just popped in my head, but that's where it went.
Yeah, that very, very on topic. Thank you, Eric, for that.
I think airplanes make me think of that that commercial as well, because that was you don't expect it, you don't see it coming because it's just Chuck Norris's face, right? And then it zooms out, and then you see the airplanes on either side, and he's doing a split over it.
No, we're gonna have to link those in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna
haven't
have to
seen
happen.
it, so
Yeah.
need to see it.
So one of the things that we talked about earlier when we were planning this show is mentoring, which is something that Eric and I have been talking about quite a bit lately. You mentioned that you wanted to talk about mentoring. What are your thoughts on being a mentor or being mentored? Have you had some good mentors in your past that have really changed your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my thought on it is just everyone should be a mentor and everyone should have a mentor. There's just no reason not to. And part of that comes from I used to work at Zappos, and this was feels like a lifetime ago now. I think it's probably only 4 years, 3 years ago. Who knows? But one of the things that I was really interested in when I was at Zappos was making sure that everyone had the opportunity to grow in the places that they felt like they needed growth. And if you're in a position where you work with people and you're surrounded by people who are doing the things that you can grow in, then you should take those opportunities if it's something that you feel compelled about. It's so easy to be in a situation where you may not have anybody and you're just getting started programming. This is not people who've been doing it for a long time. This is uh, for me personally. I started out programming because my family business needed a website, and I was riding shotgun doing building material deliveries, reading about HTML and CSS. And this is a long time ago, but I didn't have people around me. I lived in the middle of nowhere in Georgia, and no one really knew how to, for the most part, knew how computers worked there. So I had to spend a lot of this time figuring things out on my own, and the internet was still Twitter was still kind of like finding its feet, and there wasn't an opportunity to find people in communities that you know there was no Go community when I first started programming, and even then, like, there really wasn't a big group of people that were doing front end things. Like WordPress was kind of the thing at the time, but you had to learn all those things through the internet if you didn't have somebody around. And I think we're in a time now where I work with one of my friends who just graduated from Nashville Software School. We try to get together every 2 weeks, and he went there for JavaScript, so we'll work on some JavaScript stuff. But uh, just having that opportunity for him to learn from someone who's seen things go bad, seen things go sideways, like been able to experience, what it's like working on, enterprise level software or whatever software you're working on. If you're available to people and those people are interested, like that to me is kind of the sweet spot. And if you're always learning, you can always be teaching.
There's a quote that always comes to mind when I talk about mentorship, and I sent it in a tweet the other day, but it's actually by the actor Kevin Spacey, and he says, "I feel it's a responsibility for anyone who breaks through a certain ceiling to send the elevator back down and give others a helpful lift." I think that always like resonated with me. Yeah, everybody kind of climbs through the ranks, and we're so focused on like where we've drawn the line for ourselves, like where we want to hit for personal growth through knowledge or career growth, and we often forget like how far we've come and that we have value that we can add to other people.
Absolutely. I love that quote too, by the way.
So how would you define mentorship? Like what do you think makes a good mentor versus an acquaintance that you occasionally ask advice of?
I do think a big part of it is intentionality, and I think you kind of answered it for me. What I think the differences are, if it's just an acquaintance that you're asking questions of, it's kind of like going to Stack Overflow when you have a question about jQuery, and you copy pasta it and you move on with your day. I don't think it's a great pattern to fall into because you're not asking the questions. And a big part of being a mentor is teaching people how to intentionally ask the right questions. And I also think it's just being intentional about being there as well. I have I have a few people that I try to get together with every week that I consider mentors in different realms of life. And I think that's one thing a lot of people are afraid of is like, I don't want to ask someone so to be my mentor. And I don't think you have to do that. I think there are people who are where you want to be in life. And from the apprenticeship side or the apprentice side of it, you pick and say like these are the things that I need to grow in. So maybe documentation is one thing. Maybe just learning Go in general is something you want to learn or learn to be better at. Being able to find those people is a lot more trivial today than it used to be, and especially if you join Go for Slack, if you're wanting to learn Go and you've never done anything with it, like I think everyone encourages people after you've done you know looked at the tour of Go and then you've looked through the spec, like and the source, go to this Go for Slack, and you can find people there talking about things, and you can at the very least determine like, so this person knows more about this thing than I do, and I'm going to figure out a way to try and see if I can build that relationship with them to learn from them, and hopefully that mentorship goes both ways. Maybe they have something they need to learn, and like together, if you're working on that in a set interval, maybe that's like every week or every 2 weeks. um I think that's the right way to go about it.
Well, I think there's also a degree of that's hitting kind of on like the technical mentorship side where you're trying to evolve somebody, but I think there's also value in the career and personal growth, right? Because we've all kind of tread the path before people coming onto the scene now. So there's a lot that we've learned even outside of just our technical chops, about our careers and how to grow within them, and maybe transition to another role or into leadership or things like that, and even personal. Like a common thing, like I know I talk to people who have been in the industry for just a couple of years, struggle with the burnout that almost all of us have gone through at one time or another. So I think there's a degree of being around, to discuss those things too, and to remind people that are just, experiencing these types of things for the first time, that it's normal, that everybody goes through it.
I never get burnout.
Of course not.
At least not on days that end in Q.
And for all of the proof that he's lying, I will show some Slack messages in our show notes.
Don't do it. Because I have Slack messages too. That boat goes in two directions.
We've got dirt.
Have dirt. No, I get burnout constantly. And it's my own fault because I push so hard on something that I'm so passionate about. And then I realize that I've completely buried myself, and then I have to stop. And that's really hard. Taking a break, backing down is not easy.
Is that because you have too much empathy?
I don't know if it's all empathy. Sometimes it is, especially when it's product related and I want to fix things. But I just my tech passions burn hot and they burn quick. I get really excited about doing a thing, and then I work too hard on it and realize that I've let everything else go. So then I have to do all of that, and now I'm behind on everything, and I need to be paced better. I need a pacer.
You need a pacer. I think that there's a degree of it though that, like I'm similar in the respect that I often put more pressure on myself than my team or employer does, because I want to get stuff done and I want to meet deadlines, even if they're artificial deadlines. I feel kind of this need to hit them. But I think the empathy comes in, like the whole thing gets exacerbated by the fact that when other people are counting on you, you know, th- they need you to succeed, or in the work sense, they need stuff that you're working on first in order for them to do their jobs, and you feel like you're holding other people up. And I think that that's kind of where the empathy kicks in, and you're just like, it's my fault. Now they're going to be stressed because they're behind, so I got to get this done. And really, you're putting artificial stress on yourself because oftentimes deadlines can be pushed.
And then you have empathy for your users, so you want to do a good job. You know what I mean? You don't want to just deliver anything sloppy work. I think. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you.
No, it's the same. I agree. There's just lots of stresses, lots of things that push us to work too hard.
So is anybody here actively mentoring people?
I am not actively mentoring anybody, but people do ask me for advice on how to get a job, how to get it started working with Go every once in a while. And I do take the time to hop on a quick video call and give advice. I have opened myself up to take on uh, a woman of color, to somebody who wants to learn Go, only because I don't see there is any at all. And I would like to help with that. So I'm being selective. I don't have a lot of time, but I will make extra time for that. I'll make an effort, extra effort, I guess. Otherwise, I think we have been sort of successful at being attractive to women in general. We have the Women Who Go group, and men definitely, we see, people joining from all fronts, joining the community. So yeah, that's all that I've been doing.
I'm kind of the same. I have a lot of ad hoc mentoring going on. At least 2 or 4 people a day on Slack and Twitter asking for various career advice or something similar to that. But it's all ad hoc, nothing assigned.
I think that's mostly been my interaction too. And I kind of sent out a tweet over the weekend, kind of soliciting for mentees, just because I'd like to play a more active role than just like the occasional question that comes my way. Especially, I don't think that I get career based questions or kind of personal questions or things like that. It's usually technical, like I'm running into this thing, any ideas? And I think it's important for the career aspect. So, and I think I kind of like the idea of watching somebody grow too and checking in on them, you know, knowing that these couple of people you're interacting with, knowing what their goals are and whether they're on course or falling behind and trying to offer advice along the way. Um, not that there's not value in being available to answer the ad hoc technical question.
See, I don't get ad hoc technical questions though. Nobody asks me about technical things. I think it's the gray hair. I get all ad hoc, personal growth, development, employment stuff. They're asking you the technical questions. I get the, how do I advance my career questions? It's because I'm really old and you guys are young.
How about you, Chase?
Yeah, so
You
at
said
the
you're mentoring someone mostly in JavaScript.
yeah, so I have 3 to 4 people. And I say 3 to 4 because there's one that is it's a little more ad hoc, but I do have 3 people that at the beginning of the year, I decided that I wanted to invest time with them, and part of that was every year, the past couple of years, I pick a couple of themes for what that year is going to look like, and this year I picked Miracle Grow, and a part of that was to take kind of similar to what Eric had said, which is I started out doing deliveries for building materials, and now I'm a software engineer at a large well-known company, and I didn't just get here, and I didn't get here because I'm that good. I got here because people invested in me, and uh, I learned how to ask the right questions to, even if I didn't have an official mentor, to be able to ask the right questions to grow myself. So for me, I wanted to be able to invest in people in that way, and I'm hoping to carry that over next year as well, to pick up a few more people. Having a brand new baby in the house has made it a little bit harder to invest in anyone else except for her, which I'm totally I couldn't be happier, to be spending most of my time with her. But I do think if people choose to be mentors, I think it's important to be intentional about it and to carve out that time and I have definitely one guy that I'm mentoring for JavaScript, but the other two people are a lot more. Those relationships are a lot more about their technical, not their technical growth, but like, their growth at where they're working. And at the end of the day, I try to write as much code as I can, and I try to get into the code. But the reality is when you work somewhere like Walmart or Zappos or any company where it's large enough that you're not just able to churn out code because there's all this greenfield stuff. You are spending a lot of time in meetings or doing things that aren't necessarily writing code, and those are important things to help people learn how to navigate and how to do right, because a lot of times promotions and uh, even like being able to be effective, those things rely on you being able to be uh, productive outside of just writing code.
Now, here's that question kind of flipped around a little bit. Who's had a really good mentor that changed their life? I'll go first if you want. I had a manager named Jim Young 10 years ago. And to this day, I still call him and get amazing life advice. And during the time where we worked together, he was so much more than a manager for me. And it was just absolutely amazing how he helped me steer my career and my life in a better direction.
So I think through my career, I've had a lot of really good managers. Whether I consider them mentors, I think is a little harder to determine. But I would probably say that Brian is actually the person who's mentored me the most.
Oh,
And it's interesting because only when I think about like who's mentored me does that come to mind, because it's really kind of been a friendship and discussions we have and things like that it doesn't feel like a mentorship.
those are the best kind.
Yeah, I never had any sort of mentorship. My current manager is really good as far as keeping me on track with my work in general. And I have approached someone at work to mentor me technically, and that did not pan out. So I'm planning on approaching somebody else. And I think having someone from work would be easier because there's no problem about sharing what I'm doing. No, as far as intellectual property. So I would very much like to have a more senior developer, Go developer, mentor me at work. So, but I don't have that. How about you, Chase?
Yeah, I like to call out three if that's okay. I know it's
Of
two more
course.
than everyone else said. So my first one would definitely be my dad. Again, it was never an official mentorship because he's my dad. Um, but he invested in my growth as a person, especially like in my early 20s. There were a lot of times when I would come across situations that I didn't know how to handle, and just being able to talk to him and have him walk me through some of the ways that he thinks about things, or even kind of the best thing is to say he would ask me what I think about certain parts of it and of a problem I went through. um, and again, like that was a big thing. And my dad was my boss when I first started working, and having to not work for him, being able to like tell your dad, hey, I'm not gonna be able to work here anymore, I'll go work somewhere else, is pretty hard, especially if you have a good relationship with your dad. But ever since then, even he's invested in trying to help me to grow, and it was even to the point to where he would give me books to read and ask me if I want to talk about them, and we would talk about books. um, the second one that I want to call out is my previous manager. His name is Dave Cadwallader. He was at Walmart. He's at a place called DNA Nexus now. But he was one of those people who he was my manager, but like more than anything, he helped me think through how to do things the right way and how to say things the right way. There was a point in time at Walmart where a lot of people were afraid that like remote positions were going to get nixed altogether. And I wanted to ask the question of like, why, to me, I'm just like, why are we doing this? And, he made me stop and ask the right questions of, what is it that I really want to get out of asking the question of remote workers? Is it that I want to like fume at somebody, or is it that I want it to be resolved to where it's okay for people to not be in an office? And he's helped me through a lot of those, uh, what Eric said, like those politically tricky questions
Mhm.
that can easily, probably your entire career could go out in flames. If you ask the wrong way, being able to talk me through how to ask those both in a way that is clear and concise, and in a way that doesn't come across as trying to get uh, I don't know, to be effective with your questions and to be effective of the way you're thinking about things. And then my third one, there's a guy I've tweeted about him a few times, and even I my getting started with Emacs article uh, points to him, but his name's Shane Hansen, and he's on my team currently. And I don't know that he would say he was my mentor, but he has helped me grow in Go and in thinking about architecture, and thinking about how to solve problems in ways that, like, in my whole experience of being a developer, I haven't had anyone help me accelerate that quickly, into to learning things. So those would be my three.
Nice.
So here's a question for anybody listening for the answer. Is anybody here actively seeking mentees? Is anybody here willing to take on new people to mentor?
I would love to. I don't have a lot of time to take on somebody on a formal and consistent basis, and I'm making an exception for a woman of color. If somebody knows someone like that, I would take that on. But I don't have a lot of time. I'm already pretty pressed for time.
I think that yeah, I guess there was a distinction to be made too, right? Like I don't have a lot of time, so I don't know whether how much I'd be able to help, say, teach somebody the language outside of answering particular questions or pointing people in the right direction. I'm not sure I have enough spare time to, spend several hours a day or week, basically training somebody in a language. But I think that I can always make time to offer advice from a career perspective, or, here's the types of things I want to build. What should I learn? Those types of questions I think are easy enough. But the individual one-on-one, several hours of, let's walk through some your code, and I'll teach you how to write better code, I think is harder when you have a much busier schedule.
Yeah, that's harder because it also requires for you to understand the domain, which if it's someone starting to learn, that's probably going to be simple enough, but it still requires a little bit of effort. The best thing I think, and um, this is not final, I would like to hear from Brian and Chase as well, but in my opinion, one of the best things that people can do is definitely join group chats, like the newbies, what is it called? The newbies channel that we have, Golang newbies channel on Go for Slack, or the Women Who Go Slack. There is a Go Bridge channel also on Go for Slack. Because people are just because there'll be people available when when you want to ask a question, and reserve pinging people for questions that you're not comfortable asking publicly. And just like Eric, me too, I'm available for one-offs that I can say, hey, let's do 2 days from now, but nothing that I can commit to on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that's probably an important part of the mentor discussion is determining what things are actively mentoring and what things are just, I'm too lazy to go to Stack Overflow. And the difference between them is, I think, in a mentor relationship, you have that dedicated channel back and forth to answer hard questions. But if someone is taking advantage of that to ask not so hard questions, or questions that they haven't explored other opportunities with, then they're kind of putting a burden on that mentor relationship.
Yeah, and I think, you should be looking for kind of hooks, I don't know where to start, point me towards something. But I think that the personal one-on-one is valuable in the vulnerable conditions, right? Like, um, for example, some of the conversations Brian and I have, like I can come to him and express insecurity in something, whether it be, should I submit a talk somewhere, or should I, go for some job, or something like that, and we can kind of talk in a vulnerable state and both kind of have confidence in each other, and share stories that you don't really want to share in public channels. And oftentimes that can be, enough to give people kind of the confidence to continue what they're doing, or ask for a raise, or anything of that nature. Those aren't the types of things that you just drop in, a public chat forum.
Yeah, I think where do I start is a great question for public chats, unless you're currently employed and you want to keep your search private. So definitely ping somebody privately. And sometimes getting feedback on, for example, my resume, just like, tell me kindly how my resume sucks. That's something a one-on-one would be helpful and hopefully pleasant.
So I'm asking that question too, because I know my resume sucks.
I can help you with your resume, Eric.
I usually just throw stuff in there. It's like, yep, I need to add a line item for this job, and here's kind of what I did. Done.
You don't need a resume anymore.
See, so I kind of hate that, because like we all talk about imposter syndrome regularly, right? So when you kind of get like a walk-on job, right? Where like you're you, and we want you, and if you want the job, you're hired, type thing. Like that really makes imposter syndrome worse too, because you spend a long time concerned, like, do you know all of the things that they think you know, why they just offered you the job, right? And it takes you a long while to kind of figure out what their expectations are versus your skill set. Whereas if you're in a formal interview and you don't know things, you know that they know you don't know it, and you feel comfortable in that, like, oh, okay, then I guess it wasn't that big of a deal.
I don't know. I think the resume is just a tool for people getting to know you. And they can, even with the resume, they can extrapolate and think that you know more than you know, or think that you know less than you know. And an interview is the point where they take that knowledge, whether it came from a resume or it came from them knowing you from wherever, and having that conversation. So let's talk about what you really know, how you really fit in, and what you don't know, and how that, if you're comfortable with that. So I don't see the problem that you see when, if somebody invites you to have for an interview and not ask you for your resume.
And so yeah, so inviting you for the interview without a resume, like I think that's okay. What I'm talking about is like a walk-on job where it's basically like some company loves who you are. They're like, Carlisia, we listen to the podcast all the time. We love you. We want you to come work for us. Just say yes. And there's like
Well,
there's no formal
Just say
interview.
yes.
well, but you do want to have an interview because you want to interview them at the very least, right?
Mm.
Unless you also know them. In that case, their assessment's probably accurate. If there is mutual knowledge about both sides, what both sides do, and etc. Otherwise, I don't know. If you said, yeah, so sure, it's a great job, I'll just take it, without some sort of sit down and let's talk about it. That'd be odd.
I think I'm in a similar mindset as Carlisia, is that like even if you don't have to do an interview, and this is deviating a little bit, but there's so much that you just don't know about the people that you're going to work with, and this is, I don't know, I've never had this happen, but where someone says, okay, we want you, like no interview, just sign on a dotted line. For me, I don't know, that would make me really nervous, because even if it was, I don't know, a lot of money, like something that was just unfathomably better than what I have today, if I'm not going to be working with people that I think I want to work with, or that I think are going to, be interested in helping me grow, or even I've always opted for a team that has a manager that I feel like is going to be a manager that I can trust. If you haven't had those conversations, then, I don't know, a lot of those things, it doesn't matter what they throw at you that makes it a good offer. You know, not knowing is a really scary situation to be in.
Sometimes it works out in your benefit. I actually met Brian in that very way. I didn't know Brian at the time. This is before, all the things Go we do. And he was my boss when we first met. And my interview was him and the director of technology. They took me out to lunch and we had beers, and he told me why the company was so awesome and why I should come work for him. And it worked out to my benefit because now we've been friends for ages.
Mm.
That was a long time ago.
It was. I'm feeling old thinking about it.
I was young then.
You guys are so old. Seriously.
All right. So we're starting to run out of time. I think we need to get into some Go news and Free Software Friday love,
Definitely.
so we could stay on track. I have the coolest Go news. I love me some distributed tracing. And Ricardo.ch, which is a Swiss company that got training from Gopher Academy when Gopher Academy was doing training this year, they just released Go Tracing, which is a awesome open tracing plugin for Go that drops your traces and spans directly to Zipkin.
Oh, nice.
And I saw it this morning, and the first thing I did was check it out and install it, and it is perfect. It's just what you need if you want distributed traces. So go get that. It's still missing a few pieces to the API that would make it perfect, but it's really nice. So go get some of that. That's it. github.com/ricardo-ch/go-tracing.
Another piece of news is the Go 1.9 RC2 just came out. Was it yesterday or the day before? Well, by the time most people hear this, it will have been a week ago. So
That's true. That's a good question. I could go look at my Go binary and see when it was installed, because I think I installed it at least 30 seconds after it was released.
you've got like a bot that watches Twitter for the @GoLang, and whenever it mentions a release, it goes out and installs it for you.
Pretty much. So my binary date for my local Go binary is August 7th at 16:33 p.m. So I think it was the morning of the 7th that it was released.
Okay.
I was a little behind that day.
So we talked a little bit about the new change to the GoTime website in the pre-show. So for the benefit of the listeners, do you want to talk about it, Brian? Because you're like super pumped about it.
I do. It's so exciting.
We kind of all are.
We have transcripts available on the GoTime website now. So if you go to an individual episode, you can see transcripts, and they're generally accurate, if not completely accurate, but they're generally accurate. And they've got the person's name who said the thing, and it's really cool. And you can submit fixes to them, because all of the transcripts are open source and they're available on GitHub. So you can go right down to the bottom of the page and just say, I want to fix this transcript, and it drops you into the GitHub repo, and you can send a pull request. So I love the fact that we're making these episodes text readable for people who can't hear them easily, or even text searchable for Google searchability, because Lord knows we need to have physical evidence of some of the things I've said on this show.
Now it's much easier to find than having to listen through the audio.
Yeah, just search for Gator and BB gun.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, thanks for busting me on that one, Eric. It's okay. PETA is knocking at my door right now.
So do we have? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I had another project that I found that looks really cool, and it's by Alex Ellis, github.com/Alex ELLIS, and it's called FAAS, and it is functions as a service, which is a cool framework that allows you to do serverless, and you can't see the air quotes, but they're there, serverless on Docker or Kubernetes, and it's a really cool package. I like it quite a bit. And there was somewhere in this document, or somewhere in the GitHub repo, there was a link to a document that says basically, why do I care about serverless? And it was the first time ever in my life where I said, holy cow, I understand serverless now. This is why this is important to me. So it was cool. And now I'm going to stop making fun of serverless other than, the whole stupidest name in the world thing. But serverless sounds cool.
Oh, now I have to read it because otherwise I'll be the only one still making fun of serverless. You and I were in it together, Brian.
I know we were. So you got to go read that so we can be together. Good call.
You went to the dark side.
Well, I wouldn't call it the dark side. I won't make fun of it anymore. Now I understand it. Now I understand why.
Okay.
Alex Ellis has done a lot of really great tutorials on Docker and Raspberry Pi. So if you're interested in either of those things together, I think he's like the Docker captain who writes the most about those things.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he set up like a Swarm cluster with a bunch of Pi zeros, I think. I don't know. I'd have to find it, but that's pretty neat.
So did we have any other projects or news before we jump into Free Software Friday?
No, let's go FSF. It's time.
All right. Who wants to go first?
I don't have anything because this week I felt like I had to go out and get a freaking education on gender studies and social studies. Don't ask me why. That's all I'm going to say. So it was exhausting.
It's been an emotional week. I won't disagree with that.
Agreed.
I feel like to be a woman in tech or a minority in tech, you need a CS degree or some sort of CS training plus a degree in social sciences.
Okay, so I have one for you. Carlisia is shouting out to all the wonderful women in tech who persevere through a lot of crap that they shouldn't. How's that?
Yes.
That's a good one.
Nailed it.
Yeah, raising my fist in solidarity. Good job, Carlisia.
I don't know if I did a good job. I'm just saying it's a lot.
It is. We love you for it. We're sorry you have to go through it.
I'm just, I'm just a witness, and it's a lot. And there's people who is actually being effective, and that's just shitty. Anyway.
All right. How about you, Brian?
It's hard to follow that. But so on a much less serious note, I've been given a Mac for my new job at Microsoft again. So I back on using a Mac after I swore it off earlier this year. And I realized that iTerm 2 is one of the nicest damn terminals on the planet. And I'd like to shout out to George Nachman and anybody else who's contributed to iTerm 2 because it's probably the gold standard for terminals. It's a great terminal emulator.
Yeah, I don't even know how long I've been using it for. It has to be 10 years now.
Forever. I love my absolute favorite feature is their tmux control channel integration. Has anybody else used that?
A long time ago.
It is the best thing in the world. So if you install tmux on a target machine and then from iTerm 2 SSH in and then type tmux -CC, I think they have to be 2 capitals, and it will turn a regular ugly tmux session into iTerm tabs and windows. So if you did something in tmux that would start a new window, it opens up a new iTerm window. If you want to start a new tab in tmux, it starts a new tab in iTerm. So it's just the most fantastic integration ever. And I'm pretty sure iTerm 2 is the only terminal emulator that does that. And it is so cool.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah, it really is. It's amazing. And I've looked for other terminal emulators that offer something similar, and I haven't found any yet. So kudos to them. Thanks, George and the iTerm 2 team. I heart you.
Did you have a project or contributor you wanted to give a shout out to, Chase?
Oh man, this has been the hardest week because usually I'll be like, oh, Free Software Friday. I'll just tweet about it. And knowing that I was going to come on the show, I was like, oh man, I've got so many that I want to say something about. So I ended up landing on one, but I'll tweet about the rest through the rest of the next 24-hour period or whatever. But the one that I want to give a shout out to is GitLab.
Nice.
And I don't know how many people use GitLab. I host everything there and I just mirror it to GitHub. They have just like figured out this software development cycle in such a like beautiful way. It has baked in CI/CD, and one of the really cool features that they came out with recently is review apps. So when you push a branch, what GitLab will do is it'll spin up a new environment for you with your Docker file, for that particular branch. So you can go visit that branch's, what that would be like if it were running, locally or in production or whatever. So to be able to actually see your changes and, run things against it to me is just like such a cool thing. And again, it's open source, which I love, and it's just a great company.
Nice. How about you, Eric?
So mine for today is Jessie Frizzell. She is amazing. Her knowledge of Linux and containers, particularly. I don't think there's a container thing that you can touch that she wasn't somehow involved in. And then recently this week, I think the project has been around for a little while, but this week I had seen a new project of hers that I had never seen before. And it's called Am I Contained? And you can run it and it will tell you what container runtime you're running in and like the capabilities, the Linux capabilities and stuff that are available to you, which is ridiculously cool. And that is at github.com/jessfraz/amicontained.
Awesome.
Anybody have any others? Did you want to throw in more, Chase?
You can take my spot.
He's looking at his list of 50 and he's like, maybe.
Yeah. What
Why
do I narrow it down
he
to?
thinks about it, Brian? I don't find the link to the article about the serverless stuff you were mentioning.
All right, I'll troll through my browser history, and I'll see what I can find. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
But Chase, do you have anything else?
Yeah. So I'll do two more. One is org mode, which for anyone who's not familiar with Emacs is still pretty new to me. I switched from them sometime like end of last year. But org mode is like basically like Markdown on crack. And one of the really cool things that org mode does, it does a lot of cool things. It allows you to use it as a to-do, plain text files as to-do list, and you can use keyboard shortcuts to basically like update these plain text files. But one of the things that I think is really cool about it is you can execute your code blocks from within org mode when you're in Emacs. And for someone who's like, does a lot of DevOps type things, it's really nice to be able to, write your documentation in these org files the way you would in Markdown, and to actually put your code in those code blocks and execute them when you need them, rather than having your documentation separate from your code. So that's one. And then the other one is
I love Markdown, and crack must be amazing, but you lost me at Emacs.
Yeah. There's a quote that says it's something like, if you want to find the truth, hold no opinions. And that's been a really hard one for me to adapt, because I was like very hardcore using them, and then like I've used code pretty heavily as well. But every time, like I just keep going back to Emacs now, because it does so much that none of my other editors did. But I understand. It's one of those things that like if you can't make yourself decide to like even look at it, it is hard to look at it. But the other one is just the three big editors for VS Code, Emacs, and Vim. The three folks who are the main contributors to those packages for being able to write Go in those editors. I think it's like Ramya, and then Fatih and Dominic are the three, I think. And I don't know. It's just you don't think about like the fact you don't have to think about the tooling for writing Go in any of these editors, and it just works once you get the extension or Go mode installed. It's just awesome. So they should be able to just do that for I don't know. I guess some of them do get paid to do it, but
well, they could. Rami gets paid to do it, but
That's
Dominic and Fatih both have set up ways that they can also accept cash. Fatih has a Patreon, and Dominic, I don't remember what the website is that he did, but I think if you go to go-tools.org or gotools.org, he's got a way that you can support all of the tools he does, because not only does he do the Go mode for Emacs, but he's written so many countless dozens of Go tools like Static Check and so many others. I mean, he's just prolific in the Go tooling. So yeah, support those people where you can.
That's right. Yeah, there's donate buttons on all of the most of their readmes, or
I want
or
a
at least for the
donut
Go mode.
button.
I want a donut.
Where do you buy one of those?
I don't know. Is that like one of those Amazon Dash buttons? If they had one for Dunkin' Donuts, I'd be in deep shit.
I don't remember last time I ate a donut, frankly. I'm due for one. Anyway.
So I think we're running a bit over, so we should probably wrap up the show and get into the after show.
Wait, we didn't talk to Elle. Bring forth the baby. We demand baby time.
I don't know if she went. I don't.
We heard her
She may have gone
playing
down
just a
for a
little
nap
bit ago.
Oh, did you? Oh man, I got my noise
I heard
canceling headphones on, so I wouldn't have heard her.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Do you really want to hear from her? Because I can see
Of course
it.
we do. If she's awake, but never wake a sleeping baby. That's rule number 1.
Oh yeah, I know that rule. That's the if baby's not happy, then nobody's happy.
Exactly.
All right, hold it. Keep talking. I'm gonna see if I can get her in here real quick.
Okay, we'll keep talking. I had so many other really cool Go projects. Let me pull up my bookmarks, and it will remind me of all of the ones that I didn't put in for Free Software Friday, because there's some really good stuff come up recently. All right, here we go. So the Go tracing one got me really excited. Oh, there's an org called Go-Interpreter, and they have an app or an interpreter now that they're building called Wagon, which is a WebAssembly-based Go interpreter for Go. And I got a little bit lost trying to understand what they were doing. But hey, WebAssembly is hot and interpreting Go is hot. So that's really cool. If building interpreters and WebAssembly is your gig, go play with Wagon. That one will be fun.
Nice. You know, I saw WebAssembly come out and I was really excited by it, but I haven't had the chance to play with it for anything.
That's because it doesn't support Go yet. We need deep, true Go support. And then it will become important to me. Otherwise, it's just some stuff.
It's all Go all the time.
Have we talked about Matt Ryer's Vice project yet? Did we talk about that in a previous episode?
No, I don't believe so. That's fairly new. That's super cool too.
Yeah, that one I'm really excited to play with. So that's Go channels that are backed by message queues. So you treat them locally like Go channels, but they're actually doing network communications over message queues so that you can have the Go channel semantics in a distributed environment. And that's super duper cool.
All right, I couldn't get a hold of her mom, so she's probably gone down for her nap already. But I'll take a picture later, post it in the Go Time channel.
Perfect. We haven't seen any Twitter pictures in a while. I think it's been at least 2 or 3 weeks since I've seen one.
I post a lot on Instagram because that's where my mom is, and she's the only person that I absolutely feel like I have to satisfy with pictures since she's not, she doesn't live here.
Understandable.
So, but yeah, I'll put them on Twitter.
All right, so let's bring this show to a close, and we'll get into the after show. So definitely thank you everybody for being on. A huge thank you to Chase for coming on and talking to us today. It's been great actually getting you on the show.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have finally done it, and it was not nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. So thank you guys for having me.
It's all fun.
You'll have to post some reaction pictures of Elle when she hears you on the podcast for the first time. She might get a little confused.
I'll have to get my wife to take the picture because I don't know that I could sit in the same room with someone else and listen to myself talk. I don't know if you guys do that. I don't know how you do if you do.
I've never listened to our podcast ever.
So definitely share the show with friends and colleagues. If you want to subscribe, you can find us at gotime.fm. Follow us on Twitter at gotimefm. And if you want to discuss the show, if you want to contribute now to the transcripts, we have GitHub accounts for that. So github.com/gotimefm. And with that, goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
The phone rings like
perfect timing. And then the phone rings.
All right, that's it for this episode of Go Time. Tune in live on Thursdays at 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern at changelog.com/live. Join the community and Slack with us in real time during the shows. Head to changelog.com/community. Follow us on Twitter. We're at GoTimeFM. Special thanks to Fastly, our bandwidth partner. Head to fastly.com to learn more. Also, Linode. We host everything we do on Linode servers. Head to linode.com/changelog. Go Time is edited by Jonathan Youngblood, and the theme music for Go Time is produced by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. We'll see you again next week. Thanks for listening.